You're listening to Talk of Champions, an Ole Miss Spirit podcast with Ben Garrett.
It's time! It's time! It's time! It's time! It's time!
Welcome in to an all-new edition of Talk of Champions. I'm Ben Garrett at Spirit Ben on Twitter. On with me, Ole Miss Athletics Director Keith Carter. Ole Miss football is done. Ole Miss basketball is rolling. Ole Miss both women's and men's basketball are rolling. And our thanks, of course, to RiverLand Roofing, the little house up top, riverlandroofing.com for all your roofing needs. 662-644-4297. That's RiverLand Roofing. Hey, Keith.
What's up, Ben? How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you? What's going on in your world right now?
Oh, man, just, getting ready for a little Christmas downtime, hopefully, a few days at least, but a lot of work to do between now and then. As you mentioned, obviously both basketballs going, getting prepped for the bowl game. We were just out in Las Vegas for the National Football Foundation Hall of Fame, and Archie Manning is the chair of that, so we took a big Ole Miss group out for that, which was good, and then spoke on a panel at the Sports Business Journal convention yesterday. So we've been busy, and there's really never a downtime in athletics. So no downtime in December either.
So tell me about the trip to Vegas. That's a pretty unique, pretty special thing. Like you said, Arch is the chairman of that, or Archie. There is an Arch now. Archie is the chairman of that, and to take the whole Ole Miss group, what were y'all kind of discussing, going over? What was the whole event like?
Well, it's a great event. It's every early December. It used to be in New York, the Waldorf. They moved it out to Las Vegas now after COVID. But it's just a great kind of way to get together with other administrators. And we took some donors out. I think we had 3 tables. Jackson Dart actually was honored out there as one of the Scholastic student athletes. So his family was out there as well. And of course, anytime you get to hang out with Archie Manning for, an extended period of time, that's a pretty cool thing. So it's something that we try to do every year and get out there and represent Ole Miss. Langston Rogers, our longtime sports information director, who's still around and doing a lot of good work for us. He's been a legend at this event for 30 or 40 years. And, we just like to go out and have a good time. So it was good. And then again, on the back end of it, the Sports Business Journal does a convention, and they do a lot of panels with different ADs and administrators and different things. So I was fortunate enough to get on one of those panels, and did that on yesterday.
So when you get on these panels, or when you get in front of a group of people as an administrator, both in an official, unofficial capacity for Ole Miss, the number one question you get is what?
Well, so our panel yesterday, the topic was what keeps you up at night. And so our panel had no problem talking for an hour on that, but excuse me, got something in my throat, but it was a good deal. Ward Manuel was on there. Jeremiah Dickey from Boise State. Several other ADs were on the panel with me, and it was good. We just kind of talked about the world of college athletics, where we are, and some of the unique challenges that we're facing right now, but also some of the opportunities that we have. Kind of working through the House settlement and kind of what college athletics will look like moving forward.
I'm going to change the brand to Talk of Champions because it said the flagship. See, I got too many people doing shows, Keith. If I were sitting by Ward, it'd been really hard for me to go, hey, man, did you see Ole Miss's resume? Did you see the top 25 wins, right, to get in the playoff? That had to be a little, because you're an Ole Miss guy first and foremost. You probably want to, hey, Ward, come on, right?
Yeah, no doubt. And he was getting some ribbing from a few others as well. It's a hard job, though. It's a hard job. There's a lot of teams that, kind of for those last couple of spots. And, we thought going from 4 to 12, we might have a year where, there wasn't a lot of controversy, kind of have a chill year. But, of course, it didn't work out like that. But, year one, we're right there. But, it's one of those things where I think that the committee certainly has the best intentions. It's a hard job, but at the same time, it does baffle you at times, some of the things that are said and some of the things that are considered. And certainly, there's going to have to be some restructuring in the CFP format and the process and all that. I think anytime you do something new for the first time, you're going to learn things. And I think that we'll see some changes maybe even before next year.
Oh, yeah, because the SEC is really the point of contention. I think only getting 3 teams in. I mean, obviously, y'all all represent SEC schools, and you're advocating for their advancement first and foremost. So really what's been I don't want to say complaint, but the criticism from the SEC's point of view about how it turned out and what needs to be considered moving forward, more or less?
Well, I just think, when you look at, the gauntlet that we have to go through in the SEC, and you add two big brands like Oklahoma and Texas, it only gets tougher. And we beat up on each other. We just do. And that's part of the SEC and this, the challenge of the parity in our league now with NIL and, the things that we've been able to accomplish there. So, if we'd won one more game, we wouldn't have had any controversy. We'd have been in the tournament. We'd have been in the field, but we didn't. We still felt like our resume. I'm sure South Carolina felt like their resume. Alabama felt like their resume, would stand up against several of the teams that are in the playoff, And so I think we've got to continue just to push on what the proper format is. Do you need to go to a larger field, maybe to 16? Do you need to reevaluate and reseed and not worry about conference champions and make sure you get just the best 12 or 14 or 16 teams and seed them accordingly? So I think that there's a lot there to think about. But let's be realistic. When only 3 SEC teams get in to challenge for the national championship, something's wrong. Because our league is by far the best league and the deepest league in the whole country. It's good football every Saturday. There's no gimmies in our league at all. And so it's just not, a good representation of what the national championship tournament should look like right now.
Are you more in favor of reform as far as it goes with a larger field? Because I like 12. I think it's a good number. The problem to me wasn't 12. It's the automatic bids. It's the seeding. It's no disrespect to the schools that made it. Arizona State had an amazing year, Boise State, but getting a first round bye just for winning title games, maybe just the whole title game structure. Where is it for you? Is it the expanded field or all that other stuff leading to how the picks are picked? Because I've been saying, man, the one thing I do miss is BCS, like the BCS model of computers picking these teams.
Yeah. Because
Ole Miss was, a top 8 team all year, even with 3 losses.
Yeah, I think the biggest change has to be in the structure, with the way the seeds are done, with those type of things. And I do think a little bit more expansion would be good. I think, just think about us this year. I mean, we rode a roller coaster throughout the season, all the hype at the beginning, then you lose a couple in the middle, you think you're out, but then you kind of play your way back in. And it was just so much fun for us to be a part of that. And unfortunately, we didn't get it done in the end. But I just think the more teams that you can allow to feel like they're a part of it throughout the season and all the way to the very last game, I think that's really good for college football. So I wouldn't mind it expanding a little bit, but I think the structure is the key to making sure that we get the right teams in there.
I think that's the way to go because I'm now looking at basketball and you're seeing the conversation about how they're closer negotiations, expanding that field again. And man, look, you're the basketball guy. I don't have to tell you any of this stuff, but the NCAA tournament has been the gold standard for me for postseasons across all sports for, ever since I came into existence 38 years ago. What do you think about that? Going to 70 something teams, or do you like the field? What's just are the conversations when you're talking to other administrators and also the folks that are actually making these decisions about what you would like to see as far as basketball, particularly because Ole Miss, Chris Beard's got them rolling right now.
Yeah, I'm probably kind of in the same boat there. Part of me is like we're slowly but surely going to this everybody gets a trophy world that we kind of live in with our kids sometimes. But at the same time, like who doesn't love more college basketball and good college basketball? So. And I think if you look at the parity in college basketball right now, you're seeing teams every year making it to the Sweet 16, Elite 8, even Final Four that are true Cinderellas. They're just teams that come out of the blue and, really good basketball teams. But, maybe in other eras, they might not have even gotten in the tournament or been able to get past the first round. So I think creating more of those games are a lot of fun. And, if we have more time on that Thursday and Friday or whatever it is to post up in front of TV and just watch games and veg out all day, hey, I'm for that.
Yeah, I am not going to knock that. That is the best. It's by far the best. The Gator Bowl going there, kind of what went into that? What other, I don't want to say what other options there were, but was the Gator Bowl kind of like for Ole Miss, the one that became pretty obviously the destination, or was that something y'all kind of had a campaign for?
Well, it was interesting because, it really kind of depended on what happened with Alabama and the CFP. And, they were the one there at the end. It kind of came down to them and SMU. And we knew if they were up in the CFP, we might have a path to a couple of different bowls. But when they fell back into the mix, it kind of changed the gymnastics of that a little bit. But, I think for us, it was important to kind of stay in our footprint. I think that, there was some discussion about Las Vegas and some other places that are great destinations. But I think at the end of the day, it worked out great for us to kind of stay in Florida and, stay in our geographic region, and our fans can come easily and those type of things. So I think Jacksonville will be great. The CEO there, Greg McGarity, is a good friend of mine. He's the former AD at Georgia. And so was able to talk to him on Sunday and have a great conversation. They're doing a great job. Our administrative team went down yesterday and did the site visit. So I think it's going to be a great bowl. Seems like a lot of our guys are going to play, which is really cool. And, get one more chance to see these guys play before a lot of them head off to the NFL and other destinations. So it'll be pretty neat.
You addressed what I was going to ask you about, opt-outs in college football these days, especially for postseason games that aren't the college football playoff. It's an issue that every school is dealing with, except this year, Ole Miss. I mean, you're seeing Jackson coming back. Jared Ivey tells us yesterday he's going to play in that game. They're not the only ones. Trey Amos, on and on and on. Of course, there could be or will be a few opt-outs. That's the way of it. But to see this group that came into the year with such high expectations, and never historically should Ole Miss people ever dismiss non-wins or the possibility for a third straight 10-win season. It's a big deal. There can be two things can be true at once. It can be disappointing, but also historical. And to see this group that had all that on them stick together and finish what they started, I'm with you. I think that's a really pretty cool, special thing.
Yeah, no doubt. And, I think a lot of that starts with Jackson. He's just a guy that has been a true leader on this team, really all the way from the time he got here 3 years ago, but really this past offseason and helping recruit these guys in the portal and, different things. And I think those guys really rally around him and respect the fact that he's playing in the game and those type of things. But, your Jared Ivies and Trey, all these guys that have Trey Washington, guys that have just had incredible careers here, whether they've been here 1 year or 2 years or 4 years. I think they just have a special bond in that locker room. They want to do it one more time together, and I think that's really cool to do that, to have an opportunity to win 10 games, as you mentioned, that's significant. And I agree. I mean, two things can be true. I mean, I think we're all a little disappointed we didn't get in the playoff, but you look at the trajectory of our program over the past 5 years and we're in a really, really good spot. So, I've talked to Lane a lot about that. And, now what's really cool with the 12, or if we expand to, as we were talking about before, I think we as Ole Miss, we got to expect to be, knocking on the door of that playoff every single year. And we're going to get in at some point and we're going to make a run and do some really cool things. But this group of guys is going to be a big part of when that happens, because of just kind of the, the culture that they were able to set. And again, I think that starts with guys like Jackson and JJ and Garrett and those guys that have done a tremendous job for us over their careers here at Ole Miss.
That's well said. And when you look now to next year, because that's part of the conversation with this truncated schedule with the players and the portal and all those kind of things, as far as Ole Miss is concerned, the health of – I know you don't deal directly with collective stuff. Well, I don't even know how it works right now, to be honest with you, because like you can explain it to me. At one point, I couldn't ask Keith about collective stuff. Now it's like the school and the collective are one together. Also, rev sharing is coming. All of that. How if for someone like me who's lost out of their mind with where it is at this point, kind of where do you assess where all of that is, maybe where it's going? The rev share component, I think, is going to be, again, another seismic shift in how this thing works. You've already seen it at other schools. How close is that with Ole Miss? Just the portal in general and dealing with that from an administrative point of view. Where is that right now currently?
Well, it's, we spend a ton of our time working on it, and we have been able to, through state law changes and, guidelines with the NCAA changing, we've been able to work a lot more closely with Walker and his team over the past, 12 or 18 months. And, Matt McLaughlin, Denson Hollis over at the foundation, Walker and his team. I mean, it's been a true collaboration of making this thing work. And we've got a really good thing going. We've kind of got a 6-month period here once the new year starts before the rev share will start on July 1 of 2025. And so you have to figure out kind of the short-term way that works. And then, obviously as the rev share starts on July 1, moving into that world as well. But again, I think we're structured and kind of ready for that. I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel with the way we've done things here. Some of the mechanism for the payment of the money and those type of things will change. But certainly we love the relationship with Walker and his team, and we'll continue to push forward that as we move forward.
Well, it's really funny because I feel like every year when I do this interview with you towards the end of the year and we talk about these things, it's the same question. Like, when are they going to reform it? But who's in the room to reform it? Like that's the thing. Yeah. We're still here 5 years later. I remember when I was talking to you, man, I want to say before COVID, after COVID, or it was just brand new. right? The portal and everything. It was so brand new. And now it's a way of life, and yet there's still the same regulatory issues on it in 2024 going to 25 that there was in 2020. That's what's kind of bizarre to me.
It is. And back to the panel that I was on out in Vegas yesterday, the topic of the panel was, what keeps you up at night as an AD? And to me, the answer that I had is a lot of things. We spoke for an hour easily about the things that keep us up at night. But to me, it's the uncertainty, what are the rules of the game? How far do you go? How far do you not go? Do you want to be creative? You want to be aggressive, but you don't want to step on yourself either and get yourself in trouble. So I think that as we get kind of post settlement, there is going to be, a new set of rules that we hope we can all abide by. We kind of know what our cap is through the rev share, those type of things. So I think it'll get a little cleaner. The waters will be a little less murky. But at the same time, I think probably over the next year to 2 years, it's still going to be a little bit of an evolution as we transition into what, kind of the new college athletics looks like.
It's crazy because Ole Miss has never been healthier, I think, from a competitive space, from an all-in space with not just administration, but coaches and fans and hell, media. It seems like everybody's doing what it needs to. And yet it's a wild, wild west when we said it was the wild, wild west 5 years ago. So seeing how that turns out is going to be the most interesting component of it. But other sports too, I don't want this to get shortchanged because blowing up with all the rev share stuff in football and all the money and how it's going about there. I was reading something today about the concerns of paying for, like, football pays for everything, all the other sports and all those kind of things too. What is the health of not just Title IX sports, but sports that have kind of gotten lost as everything else has been exploded? I mean, I know there was a time when the school was focused on building new facilities for certain stuff and like that, but it seems like, at least from an outsider's point of view, that the health is good, but obviously there are issues. What are those issues, and kind of what are you dealing with? What's keeping you up at night about the sports that aren't just football, right? That deserve your attention just as much as the others because you're the AD.
Yeah, I've said it from day one. Like, we want to have a comprehensive athletic department. We have 18 sports. We want them all to be good. We want them all to go to the NCAA tournament. We want them all to make runs in the NCAA tournament. We've won national championships. We've gotten a taste of that. Like, we want more of that. And so, in order to do that, you got to resource those programs at a level, to do that. And so, with the rev share starting, it's pretty clear that, the majority of that's going to go to your revenue sports, your football, your men's basketball, and depending on the institution where you are, it could be different after that. I mean, some places like Nebraska, women's volleyball is, a big revenue producer for them, or gymnastics at a certain place, or different things. So that's nuanced, per institution. But, we do have opportunity through new scholarships and different things there to help some of our Olympic sports as well. One big part of our discussion yesterday was, how do you maintain the health of these Olympic sports? And I think it's really, really important. If we all say and continue to do why we say we got in this business, it's to help young people. I mean, for me, I had an awesome experience as a student athlete here. Wouldn't have had that opportunity to maybe even go to college without that opportunity to be a student athlete. So, I feel a lot of responsibility to give that opportunity, help give that opportunity to others. And it's not just the football guys. It's a lot of young people that love what they do. It's what they've done since they've been 3 or 4 years old, and they want to play and get a great education. So there's a lot of responsibility to keep that up. But at the same time, when you're tasked with finding $20 million before next year, it's just a math problem that you have to figure out. So we've talked with all of our coaches. We continue to do that. We want to be supportive. But knowing at the same time, we've got to figure out ways to find new revenue, to be fiscally responsible in certain areas. But again, if we're going to field a team, we want to win a championship, and we got to keep that mentality in the right place.
Before I let you go, do you think college football is heading toward a commissioner one day?
I don't think it's a bad idea. I just think at some point football is going to probably be out on an island by itself. I mean, it's just such a huge entity, so much money around it. It probably needs some different governance than some other sports and those type of things. And those other sports probably need different governance. I mean, they're have a different mission, and so I think at some point that would be great. To your point earlier, you have to figure out at that point, the funding for some of the other sports if football's kind of out on its own. But I just think it's becoming so huge as we talk about playoff expansion and those type of things. It's just going to become, even a bigger monster than it is now, in a good way. So I think at some point having somebody to oversee that and kind of be thinking about that 24/7 might be a good idea.
Been waiting for 5 years for some type of real reform like that. I'll keep waiting. Lane hit it on the head, man, when he said it the other day. That could you imagine in the NFL free agency opening before the AFC and NFC playoffs? It is absolutely bizarre. It never will make sense to me why the NCAA just finally went, all right, y'all go ahead, do what you want to do. But Ole Miss is in a competitive place, like I said, that it's never been before. And it's a testament to Lane, of course, but also to my man, Keith Carter. Thank you for doing this. He's Keith Carter, Ole Miss Athletics Director. This has been another edition of Talk of Champions. Merry Christmas. I hope to see you soon. And God bless you, my friend. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ben.
You're the man.